Hello everyone, welcome to this video. We're going to be discussing more beta leftovers in GTA 3 and GTA Vice City. I know that we've done them separately before, but in this video we're going to look at them both together. So to recap, what do we mean by beta leftovers? Well, essentially it's something that was left in the final version of GTA 3 or Vice City that wasn't really supposed to be there. So it's something that should have been cut during development, but it wasn't, and for whatever reason, it ended up being present in the final game. So these are things that you're able to see in the games yourselves without the use of mods. So some of them may require glitches in order to see, but yeah, you don't actually have to do anything big to be able to see them. You should just be able to see them in any copy of the game. So anyway, enough of me babbling on like that. So let's get stuck into GTA 3 first. Okay, firstly we're going to talk about the military base on Staunton Island. So this is where the mission Arms Shortage takes place, where you meet Phil Cassidy for the first time in the series, who of course goes on to appear in Vice City as well. But of course it's not the military base that we want to discuss. There's actually an area behind the military base, and it's something I've covered before in my Hidden Places video. And it's this area here, and to be honest, I'm never really sure what it is, or what it's supposed to be. It's not really clear whether it's attached to the military base, or whether it's more to do with that pipe that you can see extending out into the sea from beyond this place. But yeah, this place, it really does feel like it wasn't really finished, or that it was a late addition to the game. For example, not a lot of people know that it's even here at all. And if you were to look out from the military base, if you were to look out essentially straight across towards Shoreside Vale, you can't even see it at all. It's not even obvious that it's there. You have to know to look down, and then of course you can see it. There are some steps that lead down from the wall to this area, but there's no steps that actually really lead up to the wall and then go back down. So there's really no indication that this is here at all. So yeah, anyway, why and what is a beta leftover about this? Well, as we've seen on previous videos, when you're coming from another island to a different island, so in this case, if we're going from Portland or Shoreside Vale to Staunton Island, a lower textured version of the map is rendered until you cross over and you get that loading screen, you know, where the full island properly loads. And when you do this, so when you're flying from Shoreside or Portland to Staunton Island, actually this area at the back of the military base is not loaded. It's not there at all. So it was completely missed out of the low texture version of Staunton Island, like the unloaded version or the far LOD version, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that says to me, it kind of confirms it that this area at the back of the military base was probably quite a late addition, and as I say, it does feel somewhat unfinished and unloved. So yeah, the beta leftover here is that the low texture version of Staunton Island does not contain this area at the back of the military base whatsoever. It was never updated over the course of development to actually accommodate this new little bit of the city. So there you go. Okay, what's next? Well, it's the Porter Tunnel. So those are the tunnels that join all the three islands together. So Portland, Staunton and Shoreside. But of course, at the start of the game, they're not all open yet. Obviously, you don't get access to Staunton Island until later in the story, and then Shoreside Vale even further after that. So, if you go down here when you're not very far into the game yet, at least before you've unlocked Staunton, you can see a message that's played above the tunnel there. And essentially, it talks about the phases of the tunnel not yet being completed. So it makes sense as to why you can't get in there yet. Essentially, the game is saying that they're not built yet, but of course, they actually are. You're just blocked from entering them at this point. But the interesting thing here is that on this message, it actually refers to the tunnel as the Liberty Tunnel. And we know that this isn't actually the name of the tunnel in the game. And just to clarify that, there's a little information pickup that's right near the entrance to the tunnel. If you walk into that, you can actually see its proper name, which is the Porter Tunnel. So yeah, it looks like during development, these tunnels were called the Liberty Tunnels. And they ended up calling them the Porter Tunnels instead. So yeah, at least in this location, before you've actually unlocked the other islands, you can still see the old name of Liberty Tunnel here. on this digital billboard. In the cutscene for one of Salvatore's missions, which is called Chaperone, how many people can you see in this cutscene? Just as a little quiz for you now. Obviously there's Salvatore, there's Maria, and there's us as well, there's Claude, so 3, right? Well, no, there are actually 4 people in this cutscene, but you never really see one of them. Now there is, I think, one camera angle where this person is visible, and it's just basically a mafia guy, and he's stood by the entrance and exit to Salvatore's Gentleman's Club. So I will show a screenshot, of course, where you can see him. And to be honest, like, the camera glitches into his head. It might just be because I'm playing the game in like 16:9 widescreen mode, when perhaps this was only tested in the old 4:3. So yeah, I don't know, I'm just guessing. But yeah, essentially this guy was kind of removed from the cutscene. Obviously he's still there, but if you notice when you're watching the cutscene, all the other camera angles that the developers used are designed to obscure this random mafia guy who's in the cutscene. So it seems like they just came to a conclusion at one point where they decided that they didn't really want this mafia guy to be in this cutscene, but for whatever reason they didn't just cut out his model, they just changed all the camera angles so that you couldn't see him. Apart from obviously that one other camera angle where, as I say, the camera actually clips through the guy's head, and that's the only reason that you know that he's there, really. So yeah, really weird beta leftover, this one. As I say, it's like they decided that they didn't want him in the cutscene anymore, but instead of just getting rid of him, they just obscured him with all the camera angles. A weird one. Okay, next up. So at various points on the map, but the one I've chosen to show here is on Shoreside Vale. Behind the police station, there are like some garages where you can buy weapons and stuff. I've never really understood why that area is there, whether it belongs to the police station or what. It's never really explained in GTA 3, but for whatever reason, it's there. And in one of the garages, you can actually see these car parts. So you can see a bonnet or a hood if you're from North America, and you can see a door as well. Now looking at them, I think they both probably come from the Sentinel, at least that's what they look like. But if you look closely, they're actually in a colour that the Sentinel doesn't come in GTA 3. So these are likely a beta leftover because they relate back to a time when this colour probably would have been available for the Sentinel. And over the course of development, it was cut for whatever reason. But yeah, so these car parts here, they live on as a reminder that the Sentinel once did at least come in, would you call it red or pink or a bit of a combination of the two? Probably red. Let's go with red. The Sentinel once did come in red during development, but that colour scheme was cut and it never made it to the final game. So yeah, the only remnants that we have of that now are these car parts in this Shoreside Vale garage, and as I say, probably at other points in the map as well. Okay, next we're going to look at the mission Drive Misty For Me from Luigi Gottarelli. This is the first time in the game where we meet Joey Leone, and then of course after this mission takes place we can then take missions from Joey. The goal here is to drive Misty to Joey's garage, so yeah, pretty straightforward to be honest. It's a very early mission in the game, it's not going to cause you many problems. So yeah, so what is the beta leftover to do with this mission? Well, I have to thank Crazy for Games for letting me know about this one, and this is what he told me about it. So he says, in Drive Misty For Me, the music coming from Joey's computer is actually a sped up version of the song Echoes in My Mind by Mandrill, which is used in the 1979 movie The Warriors, as well as its 2005 video game adaptation. So yeah, really weird. It's essentially a song that is only present in this mission, and to be honest, you have to have your volume turned up fairly loud to actually hear it because it is only in the background, and especially when the characters start talking, you can't really hear it that well. So I will play a clip of it and I will try and boost the audio a bit, but yeah, you might have to turn your own audio up to be able to hear it clearly at least. So yeah, as I was saying, this song only appears in this mission, and to be honest, I have no idea why it's there. Was this song going to be a part of this game at one point? Was it going to be licensed for use on one of the radio stations? Was it cut during development? We really don't know much about it, but I think it's such a strange inclusion. I thought I'd include it in this video because surely it has to be some kind of leftover from the development of the game. Otherwise, its inclusion wouldn't make sense, really. If the only purpose of this song in the game was just to include it in the background of this mission, I mean, why would you use that song? Why would you not use a different song? Why would you not use any of the songs that are actually in the game? So yeah, we don't know a lot about this one, but I feel that there is a story behind it, so maybe one day we'll know more. Okay, let's talk about the game's intro movie again. I know this is something that I talked about when I did a previous one of these videos, where we looked at some beta leftovers in GTA 3 the first time around. And in that video I talked about how on the European version of the game, Rockstar actually used an older version of the game's intro. For whatever reason it was left in, and one of the big differences that you can see compared to other versions of the intro was that it still included the old blue cop cars and Enforcer, when obviously in the final game they were changed to black and white as opposed to blue and white. But there is actually more than just blue and white cop cars in this intro movie, and I think even a lot of these things that we're going to discuss were actually in all versions of the intro as well, or at least for the original PS2 version. It wasn't specific to the European version like the blue cop cars. And yeah, the fact is that there were other beta cars included in this intro for whatever reason. Rockstar never decided to redo them. For example, quite early on in the intro, you can see an orange stallion. Now, that doesn't exist in the final game. There is no colour of the stallion that is orange, as far as I can remember. So it was obviously a cut colour scheme during development. Another thing you can see are the taxis with the yellow bumpers. So again, that was something that, you know, if you look at the beta screenshots of the game, you can see that the taxis with the yellow bumpers are all over the place. And for whatever reason, this was cut in the final game. You can only get a taxi with a silver or a grey bumper, or a fender, should I say, if you're from North America. Yeah, so that's something you can see quite a lot in the game's intro. You can see a couple of other cars in the game's intro as well, but they're only in the background, to be honest. You can't see them as well as you can see some of the others. So you can see a Landstalker, you can see a blue Landstalker, again, another colour that didn't make the cut in the final game. This was removed during development. And near that, you can see another car, but to be honest, it's quite far away, and it is quite hard to tell exactly what it is. And it's that red car you can see in the background there, and yeah, as I say, it's really hard to tell what it is. I think my best guess is that it's possibly a Kuruma. But it also could be something like an Esperanto or another Sentinel. But I think looking closely, I think my best guess is probably a Kuruma. Looks like, well, it's obviously in red, which again is another colour that didn't make it into the final game. There is no red Kuruma. So yeah, a few examples there of beta cars that you can see in the game's intro that were never changed to match the final game's colour schemes. Also, another fact about the game's intro is that you can actually see a beta model of Claude in it. So yeah, there's the shot with the orange Sentinel, and I think the shot with Claude comes straight after that. So you can see that he doesn't really look a lot like how he looks in the final game. To me, he almost looks a little bit like Elvis Presley or someone like that. It's really strange, and if you've seen beta screenshots before, you can see that Claude's appearance did change a lot over the course of the game. So, like, especially his facial features, so they didn't really settle on the final version of Claude till pretty late on. And you can actually even see something we discussed in the last video. There's even a difference between the version of Claude that's used in the opening cutscene with Catalina and Miguel versus the Claude that you actually play as in-game. There are even differences between that cutscene model and the final model as well. So yeah, it looks like they were really playing around with Claude's appearance over the course of development. But yeah, again, a like to the cars that we previously discussed. For whatever reason, this beta version of Claude was left in the game's intro for us all to enjoy. Another thing we discussed last time was Toni Cipriani. He was another character whose appearance changed quite a lot over the course of development. If you look at the video that was put out by GTA Series Videos about the Grand Theft Auto 3 design document that was leaked, you can see the original inspiration for Toni Cipriani looked like this, effectively. So he was meant to be this like ugly Italian guy who wears a wig or a toupee. It's just like in complete contrast to someone like Luigi, who's quite suave and well dressed, etc. But then it went on from that, and again, something we discussed last time was the fact that Toni's character then almost became inspired by Joe Pesci, of course, someone who was in a lot of gangster movies, a lot of mafia movies, as well as Home Alone, of course, who could forget that. And you can actually see this artwork of the beta Toni in GTA 3 as well. He's actually on one of the loading screens, but again, we discussed that last time. So instead of just recapping on what we've already talked about, what new information can I bring to light this time? Well, there is actually a later beta phase of Toni shown in the game. So it was like an in-between phase between the Joe Pesci inspired version and of course the final version, who was voiced by the great Michael Madsen, of course. So this in-between version, he kind of looks a little bit more like the final Toni, just not as large really. He's almost like a slimmed down version of the final Toni. And you can see this on any loading screen where you get this view where like the characters are, well, loads of characters are all shown at once. You can just see this version of Toni on that screen. So it's probably something, well, at least a screen that you've seen like 1,000 times. But perhaps you've never realised who this character is and what he's doing there. But now you know. This was actually, as I say, a late beta phase of Toni, whose appearance was then changed once again to the final version that we got in the game. Another thing that we actually discussed last time was the mission Bullion Run for D-Ice from the payphone in Shoreside Vale. Now, what we discussed last time was the fact that during development you were meant to be picking up gold, but in the final version you ended up picking up platinum. However, the colour of the pickups was never changed, at least not on the initial PS2 release, from gold to silver. So you're effectively picking up platinum, but it looks like gold, which is weird. But they did rectify that on certain versions of the game, like the PC version, where it was actually changed to silver. But something else that was pointed out to me about this mission is that during the conversation between you and D-Ice on the phone, well, I say conversation, Claude doesn't speak, so it's just you listening to D-Ice, of course, and taking instructions. One thing that D-Ice says is that the platinum was spilled all over the runway. And of course, when you play the mission, the location where you're actually picking up all the platinum from is actually Pike Creek in Shoreside Vale. It is not in Francis International Airport. So yeah, I think this harks back to a beta phase of development as well, where this mission might have taken place in the airport itself, as opposed to in Pike Creek. So yeah, it looks like they were planning to have the location for the mission in the airport, but for whatever reason, they decided to change it. One of my theories is that maybe it would have just been too easy to go around picking up all the platinum, all the gold back then on the runway. It's a wide open space, there aren't really many obstacles. Maybe it just would have been too easy. And that is thinking that the garage where you have to deposit them to would have also been based at the airport. If you had to collect all the bullion and then deposit it at the same garage that you do in the final game, that could have been a bit trickier. But yeah, just one of my theories as to why they might have changed it. But of course, they never changed the wording for the cutscene, so that remains. Now, speaking of Pike Creek, one video I worked on recently was, what are the best songs on each of GTA 3's radio stations? And as a bit of an add-on to that video, we looked at all the different callers that call into Chatterbox. And one of those callers is Bob from Pike Creek, except he is not from Pike Creek. What he actually says when he calls into Chatterbox is that he is Bob from Pine Creek. So P-I-N-E as opposed to P-I-K-E.
All right, let's go to line 8. Hello, caller. What's your name?
Bob from Pine Creek.
Hey, what's up, Bob from Pine Creek?
So yeah, so where is this mysterious Pine Creek location Is it just a coincidence? Is it another part of Liberty City that isn't actually in the game that's called Pine Creek? I think that's a bit too coincidental for me. What I think is that the location of Pike Creek that is actually in the game in Shoreside Vale was at one point called Pine Creek. And the caller on Chatterbox, you know, the whole discussion between him and Laszlo is a leftover of that original name before they changed it from Pine Creek to Pike Creek. Obviously, it's only a subtle distinction, but yeah, it's an interesting thing to notice. Let me know if you've ever noticed that as well and you thought it was weird, or whether I'm just looking into things way too much as usual. Okay, sticking with Shoreside Vale, we of course have Francis International Airport. Of course, it's the big airport. You can see Francis International on the building out the front. It's referenced in missions, like the last one for Ray, where you have to get him to the airport to catch his flight to Miami. So what is the beta leftover about this? Well, interestingly, so if you go from the front of the airport and you go around the back to where all the runways are, etc., you know, you've been here 1,000 times. On the wall here, you can actually see a different sign for somewhere called Liberty International Airport. And I always thought this was quite strange. I mean, it's not like you have two separate airports that are in the same place. That just doesn't really happen to my knowledge. So what we have is, around the front we have the Francis International Airport branding. But then around the back we have Liberty International Airport branding, which, as I say, is really strange. So, of course, this is just a theory, this isn't nailed on or anything. But what I think is that, was this airport originally called Liberty International Airport? And then at some point over the course of development, they decided to change it to Francis International Airport. But then they never ended up updating these signs and this branding around the back of the airport. So yeah, again, this is just a theory, but it's just something in the game that doesn't really seem to make sense. It's another one of those things that there's probably a story behind it. We may never know the full story though, unfortunately. Okay, in the previous episode of this series where we looked at 50 beta things in GTA 3, one of the things that we looked at was Plummet Airways. Now that's a company that you can see, I think, around Liberty City, but one example is you can actually see it at Francis International Airport on a hangar. And the fact about that was that if you look at the name of those textures in the game files, you can see that they're actually called Plummet as opposed to Macadam. And the reason for that is that this company, if you like, this airways, was originally called Plummet Airways during development, but at some point it was changed to Macadam Airways. It could have well been one of those things that was changed in light of 9/11. But Plummet Airways did actually make a comeback. I think it was either on Liberty City or Vice City Stories. Maybe Vice City Stories. But anyway, the reason why I'm talking about this again is because a few people have reached out to me to say that there are actually some beta screenshots of Plummet Airways. And I think these come from the official strategy guide. So, we can actually now see that the texture for Macadam Airways was reused from the original Plummet Airways. All they did was essentially turn the texture around. So previously, when it was Plummet Airways, it looked like, of course, the plane was going down. But as I say, they reused that old texture, that leftover texture, they reused it, they turned it round and changed it into Macadam Airways. So yeah, so what is the beta leftover here? Well, of course, it is the image that ended up being reused for this new company. Now, something that's always occurred to me over and over again when I've been playing this game is a lot of the names of the taxi destinations. They're usually either shorter or abbreviated from the actual places in the game, or they have like different spellings or some things that are slightly different between the name of the destination for the taxi missions and the actual place. Now, one of the most intriguing ones actually is wherever it mentions the Redlight district. Now, the Redlight district isn't a location in its entirety that you have to drop passengers off at. There are different locations within the Redlight district that you have to take passengers to. But whenever the red light district is shown as a taxi destination, it's not actually called the red light district, it's just called Redlight, and it's all one word. So yeah, this is likely a leftover from just like an unfinished name, maybe just like a placeholder name for this district over the course of development. And when the final game came out, it was just something that was never updated to match what is obviously the proper name for this location, which is the Red Light District. And I know I said that other names are abbreviated, but this, I mean, it's all one word for a start. It just doesn't look like an abbreviation as such. It just looks like something that was left over, something that should have been fixed but never was. Again, something we've talked about on the channel before is Catalina's helicopter in the exchange, which is the final mission of the game. Now, we've talked a lot about it in the sense that you can actually get up to the helicopter and you can have a look around it, you can interact with it, because there's a way by like using the stinger that you can climb up the dam and you can interact with the helicopter, and Catalina and the Cartel Maria don't spawn in, so you can just like mess around up here forever. And there's also another video that I made that actually shows you how you can actually enter Catalina's helicopter, but unfortunately you can't fly it or anything like that. So again, we find ourselves talking about Catalina's helicopter. So what is it this time? Well, it's the textures for the helicopter itself. So what Rockstar actually did with this helicopter is to reuse an old version of the LCPD, the police helicopter, that you can actually see in pre-release screenshots. So the police helicopter didn't always used to be blue and white. At one time in development it was just white with a black police logo on it. And essentially, instead of chucking those textures away, they just decided to reuse them for Catalina's helicopter. Obviously the only difference being that the black police logo was removed. So yeah, an interesting one this. It's a beta leftover in a way, but I guess also a case of being smart about video game development and reusing old assets that would have otherwise gone unused. Okay guys, last one for Liberty City now, and then we move on to Vice City. And the last one for GTA 3 is to do with Asuka. Now in the mission A Drop in the Ocean, you return to the construction site and you have to clear out all the cartel so that the Yakuza can take over. And there's a cutscene where you get to like Catalina and Miguel, who are up the elevator, like in the building itself that's being built. And essentially Catalina shoots Miguel, she runs away, then Asuka appears. So, what is the beta leftover in all this? Well, in this mission, the cane that Asuka has is white, and in every subsequent mission, it is black. So for whatever reason, I don't know if the cane was just intended to be white at one point in development and they changed it to black, or whether they just forgot to colour it black, or they forgot to texture it. Whatever the case, the white cane here, as obscure and specific as it is a bit of a beta leftover really. I don't think it should have ever been in the game. As I say, it doesn't match the cane that she has in the rest of the missions, so it's either a mistake or it was like that once in development and they changed it, but they didn't change it for this one mission. Okay, now it's time to head over to Vice City. Okay, when we did the first video on Vice City's beta leftovers, I mentioned a few things about the game's introductory cutscene. And I do have to say that when I posted that video, a lot of you guys did correct me on one thing, which I will recap now. So one of the beta weapons that appears in the intro cutscene, I wrongly called it the SPAS-12. It is actually the M60, which makes a lot more sense. Well, I say a lot more sense. I mean, you're firing at, or they are at least firing at pretty close range. Maybe the SPAS-12 would make more sense, but whatever the case, it is the M60 in the intro cutscene, not the SPAS-12, and it is still a beta version of the M60. So yeah, good to recap on this one, and thanks to everybody who'd let me know. And you rightly pointed out, I am British, therefore I know next to nothing about guns. So yeah, on to the next one. One of the cars that you get from completing the car lists at Sunshine Autos is the Deluxo, which was of course based on the DMC DeLorean. Now, what is the beta leftover about this car? Well, if you crash into a wall or whatever else a few times, so much so that you knock the front bumper off, you can actually reveal part of a beta grille that this car actually had. So for example, it looks completely different to the outside, the bit that we crashed off. It looks completely different on the inside. So on the outside, you've essentially got like the car's emblem, which is like 3 little lines almost. But on the inside, you've actually got quite a big grille that sits in between the 2 headlights. So I think what happened here was obviously the car, as I say, was based on the DMC DeLorean. Now, during development, it probably looked a lot more like the actual real-life car than it ended up looking. So the developers probably changed various things about it so that obviously they didn't get hit with copyright or anything like that. They didn't run into licensing troubles. Because obviously, even though every car in Vice City is based on a real-life car, they didn't actually use the real-life cars, of course. They use their own versions, if you like. It's something that Rockstar still do today, of course. But yeah, so it's probably just an oversight on the part of the developers. But yeah, so they changed the outer grille and the exterior at the front of the car so that it would look less like the car that it's based on. But they just forgot to change it on the inside when you smash the front bumper off. And you see the old grille that used to be there and would have also been, well, or at least something similar, would have been visible on the exterior of the car as well. Now, something I've talked about before, I think, is the fact that you can actually glitch under the map with a helicopter. Essentially, there's a building called, what is it, the Vice Point Langer. You can fly up through part of the ceiling because it's not solid, and then you can fly down and you can go under the map with a helicopter. So it's pretty cool for exploration. But actually, if you come over to the golf course, there are actually 2 objects that are just sat under the golf course. They shouldn't be there. But for whatever reason, the developers put them down there and just never took them out prior to the game being released. So one of them is this little white ramp type object. And there's another one which is just like, it's like some kind of walkway. It's like a metal platform with like 2 big handles at either side. So yeah, essentially, and obviously, these 2 things shouldn't be down here. Again, as I say, probably just an oversight. They were probably put down here for some reason at some point. But yeah, for whatever reason, these 2 things didn't end up being used in the final version of Vice City. And the developers just, I assume, forgot about them, and they were never removed. Now, the white ramp type object isn't solid, but actually the metal walkway, that actually is solid. It seems to have quite a big hitbox as well, because every time I tried to get near it with my helicopter, like, I couldn't really, I just kept crashing into it. So yeah, these 2 weird objects down here, who knows why they were there. Here's something that we discussed in relation to GTA 3, but now we're going to discuss it in relation to GTA Vice City. And that is the function that allows you to shoot the moon with a sniper rifle to change its size. So I think we covered this in my original GTA 3 beta leftovers. But essentially I'll recap it here for Vice City. Now the interesting thing is that Obi Vermey, so he's the former technical director of Rockstar North, which were of course formerly DMA Design, who worked on GTA 3, Vice City and so on. He tweeted out not that long ago that actually this feature was designed as a feature that would allow them to basically test the size of the moon in-house. So I think, if I can remember correctly, what he said was that he built this feature to allow the designers of the game to decide what size they wanted the moon to be, so that in-game they could just almost toggle easily between different sizes. And of course, as you know, this is something that got left in the final game, even though it was supposed to be only there for testing. And it actually, I think it was also in GTA San Andreas as well. So it's in GTA 3, Vice City and San Andreas. And I thought it was worth mentioning again for Vice City because it's kind of amazing that it still got left in, to be honest. Even if, like Obi says, he knew why it was made. He made it himself. He knew that it was just made for testing, and yet it was never removed, even for the sequel of the game. But also, what's interesting in Vice City is that you can actually change the size more times than you can on GTA 3. I think on GTA 3 it's just think 2 or 3 different sizes of moon that you can toggle between. And in Vice City, it's like 6 or 7. So they must have actually built on that feature. You never know. Maybe it did actually pass from being this testing thing that was going on to actually being implemented as an Easter egg. But yeah, whatever the case, its origins are in testing, so it was actually a beta leftover that was actually never supposed to make it into any of the final games. Okay, we've talked about taxi destinations in GTA 3, but let's talk about one in Vice City. And that is for the Hyman Stadium. Now, we know from looking at the Sunshine Autos map that the Hyman Stadium didn't actually exist until like a certain point in development. It was actually a relatively late addition as far as we know. So yeah, as I say, on the Sunshine Autos map, which I've covered before in my previous Vice City beta leftovers video, the Hyman Stadium just isn't on that map at all. Now, we don't know exactly what point in development this map is from, but yeah, Hyman Stadium does not exist there. And yeah, so how does that relate to the taxi destination? Well, I think it is worth saying that, and I think I mentioned this when we were talking about GTA 3, is that a lot of the destinations in the taxi side missions are abbreviated, so you will get shorter names sometimes. But in this case, yeah, you instead of having the Hyman Stadium as a destination, you just have the stadium. Now, of course, why do I think that's different to the fact that it could have just been abbreviated? Well, as I say, we know that for a long time, the stadium did not exist in GTA Vice City, and it was quite a late development. So it could well have been the case that the stadium just didn't have a full name for a long time. And only during late development did it actually become the Hyman Stadium. So of course this is just a hypothesis, this is just alleged, it's not concrete or anything, but I think this taxi destination could have potentially been programmed before the stadium actually had a proper name. Maybe during development it was just referred to as the stadium, and then subsequently it got a proper name and it became known as the Hyman Stadium. But they never changed the taxi location. Okay, so here's a really cool one, in my opinion at least. Okay, so during the introductory cutscene, the one that we've already discussed, there's a bit in the cutscene where Ken Rosenberg picks up Tommy and his associates from Escobar International Airport. And when that's happening, an aeroplane flies in and lands on a runway behind the car. So if we go to this same location in Vice City, what do we actually find there? Well, what we find is that there's a runway here, for sure, but it's an extremely small one. Certainly not long enough to land a full-size aeroplane on. I mean, I'm probably overthinking this, as usual, but yeah, there's no way that an aeroplane could land on this runway and slow down in time not to hit the fence at the end. What this runway actually looks like is there's a very small straight bit, but then it bends around the corner. And on this runway, we do have like one big aeroplane, like an air train if you like, and then we have a smaller, more private jet-like aeroplane, a little bit like the Shamal from GTA San Andreas. So we have those two planes, and then, yeah, so what do we actually have beyond this runway? Well, as I say, there's a fence at the back, and beyond that fence, there's actually a road, and then across the road is the Fort Baxter military base. Let's go back and have another look at the Sunshine Autos map to see if we can get a bit more information about this. As I mentioned in my last video about Vice City beta leftovers, the Fort Baxter airbase did not exist during development until fairly late on. As you can see here from looking at the Sunshine Autos map, you can see that the Fort Baxter airbase just wasn't there at all. Instead, the full airport extended right the way up. And as you can see if you look closely, you can see that same runway, but it doesn't bend off. It's actually straight and it goes all the way over to where Fort Baxter is in the real life final version of Vice City. So what does this mean for the aeroplane that came into land during the introductory cutscene? Well, it means that the aeroplane that came into land was probably programmed, its flight path was probably inputted into the game prior to that change taking place. So it probably harks back to a time when there was actually a full-length runway there for it to land, comfortably and not crash into a fence or anything like that. So yeah, this is just something that was never changed over the course of development, And you can see why, to be honest. I mean, who would have thought that someone would be talking about this about 20 years later, more than 20 years later, in fact. But yeah, just a weird one, something that is probably just passed you by forever. You've probably watched this introductory cutscene so many times and never even thought about it. But yeah, there you go. The aeroplane that's coming into land was actually likely landing on an older version of that runway that was actually long enough to land on. On a couple of radio stations in GTA Vice City, you can hear an advert for a place called Shady Acres. Let's have a listen now.
I'm a VIP, and I want to live around people just like myself, rich and divorced.
Shady Acres.
I'm Everett Carrington. Shady Acres is an incredible, upscale, state-of-the-art, top-notch condominium development. A short drive out of town on some pristine wetlands, away from the noise and uninvited diversity of the city.
Shady Acres.
And when you buy into that dream...
Okay, so you might well have recognised the voice in that advert, and it is of course Avery Carrington, who we take missions from during the storyline of Vice City. And of course Shady Acres, he talks about it as a new development that he's working on. And what does he specifically say about its location? Well, he says it's located a short drive out of town on some pristine wetlands, away from the noise and uninvited diversity of the city. So how does that translate into a beta leftover for Vice City? Well, during development of Vice City, the developers actually wanted to replicate the real-life Florida Keys, and they were going to call it Gator Keys. Now, how do we know this? Well, actually, in the files of the game, there is an unused phone conversation between Tommy Vercetti and Avery Carrington again, where he specifically mentions Gator Keys. And this would have likely been located south of Vice City. Now, of course, you'll know that this location doesn't actually exist in the final game. It was cut during development. We don't really know how far they got with it and, you know, what it would have looked like if we ever got to drive around it. But essentially, if you look at the description of Shady Acres being located on some pristine wetlands, a short drive out of town, players have theorised that Shady Acres was actually located at Gator Keys, which is of course the cut area of Vice City that didn't make it to the final game. So yeah, while Gator Keys may have been cut, the radio advert for Shady Acres still lives on as a remnant of an earlier phase in development where we would have had a little bit more of Vice City to explore. I guess the reason why it was left in is because it only makes kind of loose references to Gator Keys. So yeah, it doesn't really detract from the spectacle of the advert itself. Now, going back to Escobar International Airport, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but there's actually a fire station located at the airport. Now, if we have a closer look at it, we can see that there's like a badge or emblem on the building. And what does it say? It says LCFD, which of course stands for Liberty City Fire Department. In fact, this whole building was actually lifted straight out of GTA 3. I believe it's the same one as the one you can find at Francis International Airport in GTA 3. So yeah, again, I think it probably goes to show that obviously Vice City did have a pretty short development time. I think it was about a year in total, which is actually crazy to think that they actually managed to make this game in a year. But yeah, it probably just shows, and it's indicative of the fact that there were unfortunately just a few oversights in Vice City. One of the things that we mentioned in my last video was how certain cars on the game, not many, but certain vehicles actually still had Liberty City license plates as well. So yeah, a full-blown Liberty City fire station that was never amended to say Vice City Fire Department instead. We have Vice City news. Yeah, a bit of a weird one, you think. Yeah, of course there is a building in the game on the Vice City mainland called the VCN building, or the Vice City News building. And of course at the top of that building you can find the VCN Maverick as well. So yeah, why is this a beta leftover? Well, the answer is that VCN, or Vice City News, at one point in development was actually intended to be its fully blown own radio station actually. And we know that because there are some map icons for all the radio stations. We don't really know why that is, we don't really know why they were created, but yeah, there's one for all the radio stations in the game, plus an extra one for Vice City News, indicating that at one point in development this could have been its very own station. But of course, all that remains in the final game is the building and the helicopter on top of it. Okay, well, you're probably noticing that I'm wearing a different jumper now, and that's because this is a few days later. I realised that I'd recorded 24 things, so I wanted to find a 25th thing to make it a nice round number. Unfortunately, there is something else that we can talk about, and it's this place here. Now, we were just discussing the VCN building, and this building that we're discussing now is right across the road from it. So, have you ever noticed this building before in downtown Vice City? It's quite a strange one because if you look at it, it doesn't really look like any of the other buildings around it. All the other buildings just have like basically a normal shop front, or just a normal, well, they look like a normal building if they're not a shop. If they're like a block of apartments or an office, they just look normal. This one looks different to all the other buildings around it. It has like these openings at the front, and it does have a door next to it, of course, which is inaccessible. Now, it kind of looks like you could just walk straight through into the building, but unfortunately, you can't. Because even though it looks like an opening, it's solid. It's just solid, you can't go through it. You can even try shooting it as well. At first I thought, oh, is it glass? Is it breakable glass? Unfortunately not. You can't shoot it like you could shoot like the windows in the shops in the mall, for example. So, why is this a beta leftover? Well, according to GTA fandom, there are textures in the files of the game that actually refer to this building and tell us what it was originally intended to be used for. It was intended to be a car showroom or a car shop, which kind of makes sense when you look at it. I mean, you could just imagine a load of cars being in there. So yeah, there are two textures at least. One is called car shop wall and the other is called car shop floor. So there you go, this building across the road from VCN, if you've ever noticed it and wondered, why was it designed like this? Well, it's because it was originally going to be a car shop or a car showroom, but for whatever reason, the idea was scrapped. And there you go, that is the end of the video. That was 25 things, 25 beta leftovers from GTA 3 and Vice City. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. And do let me know if you've got any more suggestions of things to check out in the comments. Thanks for watching.